Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Have your nerves come back to normal yet? Newcastle United have qualified for the Champions League by the skin of their teeth. Well, actually, that's a little bit unfair on Newcastle United because, of course, you qualified for the Champions League over a 38-game season. Of course, they came into today's game against Everton knowing that a win would secure it most certainly. And instead, Newcastle United lost the game, didn't play very well at all, and left our nerves shredded to pieces. But thankfully, that great team, that wonderful team in the Northwest, not the one that's won the Premier League, not the one that we were battling for third place, but the one that hasn't been very good this season, the one whose manager hasn't quite lived up to expectations, the one we've all been taking the mick out of, thankfully beat Aston Villa and got us that place into the Champions League. And again, it's a little bit fair because, again, we didn't get in the Champions League just because Manchester United beat Aston Villa. I mean, on today, yes, we did. Aston Villa had won that game or even drawn that game, and Newcastle United, based on this result, would have gone into the Europa League, which would have been absolutely crushing. But we look at it across the entirety of the season, and Newcastle United deserved to be there. They were in a great position before kick-off against Everton because of their own hard work and merit, and they deserve the Champions League for next season. And you look at the team that Eddie Howe has had to play with. He's not been able to add to this squad in 3 transfer windows. And not only has he qualified for the Champions League, he's also won the Carabao Cup. I mean, if someone had offered you one of those things at the start of the season, Champions League football or a trophy, you would have taken either one. To be sitting here and saying we've got both is unbelievable. And to those people who said, when the question was continuously being asked, Champions League football or a trophy, which one do you want? And I said Champions League football. Some people said a trophy. To those who said, well, why can't we have both? That is the spirit and optimism, ladies and gents, that I'm absolutely loving right now because you guys were spot on with that prediction and that demand. And why shouldn't we? We are Newcastle United, the greatest team that ever was. Today's performance was poor from Newcastle United, and we don't want to, dive too much into it because I'll do that on Tuesday, the Monday show on a Tuesday with Aaron, potentially if he's back. He's been gallivanting away, but there will be a podcast on Tuesday. We don't want to look, it would be too harsh on Newcastle United because at the end of the day, the aim was to get in the Champions League and they've done that. But if you look at the performance today, it was flat for the large part. They looked very tired. They looked out on their feet. I mean, they'll be grateful that the summer break is coming up. It just re-emphasizes that Eddie Howe needs 4 or 5 players this summer to really make a go of next season because the Champions League is going to increase the demands on that squad, increase the demands on the players, and he needs backing in the transfer window. And fingers crossed, he will get that. The chairman was here today. Jamie Rubin was here today as well. So they saw exactly what we saw. These players who have given everything this season, and it looked like it was just going to be one game too far. But thankfully, Manchester United beat Aston Villa, and we're sitting here as a Champions League club. And it feels good to say that. As I said, they deserve it. But by God, do they need to do some work in the summer? And I think they will do. I think we'll see at least 2 or 3 quality players added to the squad, and then a few squad players added as well. But the squad will be measurably better come kickoff in August. As we said, the performance not very good against Everton. I mean, look, Newcastle had their chances, and we kind of joked and were semi-scared and semi-serious about Jordan Pickford having a great game and being the villain of the afternoon. And he pulled off 3 or 4 really, really good saves. There was a double save in the first half, one after the other, 2 good saves there. And then there was a save in the second half as well from a header, which he tipped over, or a shot he tipped over. It's all blurred into one. He had a really, really good game. And you feared that he would be celebrating at the end of the game with Everton winning and Villa drawing. But like we say, Manchester United did us a favour. And for a team that we thought were going to be on the beach, Everton really had Newcastle United's number. I don't think they were necessarily more energetic. I think what it was really, and you could see this very early on, Newcastle were nervous. I think the nerves got the better of the players. I don't think the crowd were all that nervous at all. I think the crowd were absolutely spot on today. They really helped to pick up the players, especially when they went behind. And then when the news filtered around that Manchester United scored and then it grabbed the second, the fans really played their part in that and started getting very jovial towards the end, which I thought was a little bit of a risk because, you never say never, and it's not over till the fat lady sings. But the crowd was spot on. I think the players were very, very nervous because of what was on the line. And you looked at full time, Fabian Schär, down, head in the pitch. A few of their players just sitting there looking so dejected. And I'm not too sure they knew they were in the Champions League. Now, the Manchester United game had not ended, but I think there were only a couple of minutes left, and the chances of Villa getting back into it, very, very unlikely. Harvey Barnes running on, says something to a few players who are down on their haunches, and I think he's trying to get the message across that Villa are losing here. We've done it. Then the whistle goes and the crowd erupt, and Eddie Howe can kind of relax and celebrate. But I'm not sure the players on the pitch knew they had done it, even though they'd lost. I'm not sure they knew that they were just 30 seconds away or so from confirmation of that Champions League spot. And of course, when the news came, they all went into a huddle and jumping up and down and celebrating. And the relief was there. The joy was there. And why not celebrate it? Because they've done absolutely superb. Just imagine what this team can do with a few top quality additions this summer. Just imagine where they can go. I don't think they'll be looking at the Champions League and thinking, we're not going to be one of the top sides in this new format. We'll just play, give everything. We'll take the experience. I think they're going to go and they're going to really rock the establishment in the Champions League. That's going to be their aim. I'm not going to say they're going to be in it to win it, but Eddie Howe wants to win every trophy, wants to win every single game he plays. But certainly Newcastle will not be there to make up the numbers. And with 2 or 3 quality additions, there's no reason why they can't go far in that competition as well in the domestic cups and go good in the Premier League as well. And, you could see what it meant to the players at full time. Once the news had come through that they'd made it, Bruno hops over the advertisement boards, hops into the crowd and gets absolutely smothered by Geordies wanting to congratulate him and thank him. He absolutely loves the tune, does Bruno, by the way. Absolutely loves Newcastle United. He was in there for a good 30 seconds, absolutely loving it and, doing his usual kind of fist pump celebration. Loves it. You've got Tonali being serenaded by every section of the ground. Eddie Howe leading the way, but not wanting to be the man at the front. That speaks volumes about him. It's not about Eddie Howe and what he's done with this squad. It's about the club as a whole. Even though, Eddie, if you're listening, take the plaudits, my friend, because few managers could do what you've done. And I know people will say, wait there, you've got Tonali, you've got Bruno, you've got Joe Linton, you've got Alexander Isak, the first team, when everyone is fit, is brilliant. It really, really is. But in terms of that depth, it is not there. And you look at the depth at Aston Villa, they gambled, by the way, with Marcus Rashford and Arsenio, and that's backfired hugely. But you look at the depth there, they've got better depth. Chelsea have got better depth. City have got better depth. Arsenal got better depth. Newcastle United, I think we're being realistic because injuries and suspensions and form's always going to come into it. They should probably, is it fair to say, be nowhere near the Champions League? That might be a little bit harsh, but the point being, Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall and all the coaching staff deserve huge, huge plaudits for what they've done because they've really had some tough times this season. They've had out-of-form players. Alexander Isak again today, just non-existent. Anthony Gordon, non-existent. They've had injuries. No Joe Linton for the past few weeks. Huge, huge miss. Sven Botman only coming back in recent games. He's been a miss all season. And yet Newcastle United finished 5th and qualified for the Champions League and won a cup. Like, we're talking about manager of the year. It's right there, ladies and gents. He's done such a good job, Eddie Howe. Absolutely brilliant. And he's a man that won't take individual praise and he'll say it's all about the club and all about the players and all about the staff. But it's about him. He's the man that, lays down the law. He's the man that lays down the approach everyone's got to follow. They've got to buy into it. And he's the man with the ideas and the execution of those ideas. And this season is it's just amazing. When you really think about it, just take a step away to think about it. Newcastle United in the Champions League with that squad, with that depth, unbelievable, and a cup as well. I just keep saying it, to be quite honest, because it absolutely amazes me. Just wow, absolutely fantastic. We also saw Callum Wilson crying at the end of the game. He went down to the Gallagher, held his hands up, waved, and then he teared up. A really nice moment just after that because Jason Tyndall grabbed him. And it looked like Callum Wilson was going to go back down the tunnel where everyone else was waiting because they came out and did the parade. But Callum Wilson grabbed them and Jason Tyndall grabbed them and shoved them back out of the pitch. And he did another lap, hands in the air, waving, clearly very emotional. I mean, if we're ever in doubt about Callum Wilson's future, that says it all. He will be leaving Newcastle United this summer. I'm recording this. I haven't seen any Eddie Howe's post-match thoughts. I'm sure he was asked about it. I'm sure he probably confirmed it. But I mean, a man like Callum Wilson, he doesn't tear up unless there's something behind it. And I think he's probably knows his time on Tyneside is over. He's probably been told he's not going to get a new contract. He's been a fantastic servant. He'll finish his time on 49 goals, I think it is, for Newcastle. We only wish he'd stayed injury-free because he'd be talking about a lot more goals on his record. But he has worn that number 9 shirt when he's been fit and in form with ease. He's been such a good servant when fit and ready to fire. Brilliant striker, one of the best goal scorers we've seen at this club. Not in the category of maybe Alan Shearer or Malcolm McDonald, but when you're talking about the next level down, he's up there. He's up there. I'd put him up there with Les Ferdinand. Definitely. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And it's just that fitness which has cost him a lot more goals. But as it is, we wish him well wherever he heads to. Maybe the Middle East, maybe Leeds United, a club who's come up mid-table Premier League side. Because if he could keep fit, he could probably still do a job. But I just don't think Newcastle United can gamble on his fitness anymore. But we wish Callum Wilson well. And we'll do a bit of a more in-depth episode on Callum later when it is being confirmed and when we know exactly where it is going. A word for War Flags. They had 3 kind of sections of a display. Newcastle United in gold on the East Stand looked absolutely superb. Then we had wavers and black and white flags on the Leazers with a Newcastle United badge. And then we had the words, "You entered the pitch as players, you left it as legends" across the gallery. Of course, they are Bruno Gomes' words in the team talk ahead of the cup final, which they won. And it summed it up, really. Okay, again, they lost today, but this season, they've got themselves in the history books. We're looking at a team of legends. I mean, do you remember, right? The Chronicle used to, every so often, do that kind of pull out and you could collect cards. And you could buy the Chronicle and they'd have a Newcastle United card in it. There were Newcastle United legends. They did it twice. And Jackie Milburn, Steve Watson was. I collected it as a kid. You had a wall chart. You stuck it up on your wall and you shoved in the cards. We could do that again. I might tell me gaffer, let's get that done again because these players are legends. The first squad to win a domestic trophy in 70 years. The first Newcastle United team to win a trophy since 1969. And then in the Champions League. Unbelievable. You think back to Sir Bobby Robson's era and, getting into the Champions League, fantastic, but didn't win a cup. You think back to Keegan and Dalglish finishing second, but didn't win a cup. This is the best league season campaign since Sir Bobby qualified for Europe. But when you think about the cup victory on top of the Champions League qualification, it is the best season Newcastle have probably had since 1927. Going back a long time ago when they won the cup and they won the league. Absolutely fantastic to see. And they are legends. And now it's all about building on this. The Champions League and the monetary reward that comes with it is absolutely crucial to where Newcastle United are going to go in the next few years. The financial reward cannot be overlooked, cannot be understated. It's so important. But just the ability to say to potential rivals this summer, you're not only going to play European football, you're going to play Champions League football. Show them a clip of PSG 4-1 here, and that'll really get the pulses racing. And to be able to say it to Bruno, to Isak, to Tonali, all these whispers, blah, blah, wants you. This team's going to come in for you. All that national media gossip. No, you're going to stay right here and play Champions League football next season in front of these wonderful fans. You've earned it. You've won a cup. And then we're going to spend in the summer and bring in better players to help take the squad. Why would you want to leave? The monetary value is so important. But just to be able to say those words to your star players and potential rivals is massive. Like, it is unbelievable. Champions League football back at St James's Park yet again. And can't wait to see who Newcastle United get. Real Madrid, come on over. Let's have a really big hitter. We displaced PSG. Yeah, we should have won over in Paris. Let's get a few big teams here and really, savor what this competition has to offer, while also hopefully going big in the league and in the domestic cups next season. Unbelievable. Final word on today. Wasn't great on the pitch. Players tired. Need new additions. But they've done so well. So well. So you can't have too many complaints. We'll probably argue that I think the Anthony Gordon decision was the wrong one. I don't think I would have started him, and I didn't say anything in the first half, which suggested I should have done. He looked 2 or 3 yards off the pace every time the ball dropped in front of him. Isak, again, nowhere to be seen. It's really difficult for him when he's out of form. No one's pushing him because there's not really a top striker coming behind him. Eddie Howe hasn't really got anyone to turn to. William Asula, though, by the way, arguably, I might get a few pellets for this, but I'm going to say it because why not? Let's just say it. William Asula, I think, was maybe man of the match. Is that too? Not maybe that is too far. He was excellent though. When you think about the impact of any of the players through that game, Dan Burn struggled. Fabian Schär struggled. I mean, better give Dan Burn a real tough time. He won a lot of headers, Dan Burn, but he was up against it. Tino Livramento in the first half, I just sat there and thought, he's so good. Like, okay, he hasn't got the England squad. There's reasons for that, good reasons for that. He's going to be in the under-21s. He'll benefit from that. But he is the best fullback, I think, in the country at the moment. You watch the way he glides forward, taking on players at will. Brilliant first half performance. Second half didn't quite live up to that. And that might have been because of the switch with Willock coming on for Gordon. And they went from 3 across the middle, at the back, sorry, to 4 at the back 4. And then Livramento switching sides. But look, William Asula came on. He was just direct. He wanted to run at players. He had absolutely no fear. And they could not handle him. Threw him on 20 minutes early, and I think Newcastle got at least a point here. He was doing the scissors. He was, just really wanting to test the fullbacks. Because when you think about that, Mekalenko and they had Ashley Young, and Newcastle United did not really test him at all, especially Ashley Young, which was really disappointing. And, we always know Eddie Howe's a little bit reluctant to throw Sula on. He's very, very raw. But I tell you what, he impressed me. I think we just needed that kind of unpredictability. You don't know what he's going to do with the ball. He knows what he's going to do with it, I think. And he just ran at the defence and they couldn't handle him. A couple of really bright moments for Asula. And saying he's man of the match might have been a little bit too much, but certainly gives you positivity and optimism for what's to come next season from that young man. We had the chairman, as I mentioned here, with Jim Rubin, chairman on the pitch, and he's gesturing at the crowd, putting the finger up in the air saying we're number one. Brilliant to see. He was in close conversation with Eddie Howe, giving him a hug. Nick Pope. He really wanted to have a long chat with Sandro Tonali. There was a big, big hug there as well. So he's invested in it. And it's going to be a big summer as well. You've got the badge update, you've got the stadium update, and of course, you've got the transfer window as well. The kit comes out on Thursday. That was on show today. Of course, the players wore that. Looks really nice actually in person. So I'm intrigued to get it in my hands. You've got, players' futures up for grabs as well. Who's going to go? There's a lot to look forward to this summer. And we can do it as a Champions League club, which is even better, ladies and gents. Probably hasn't sunk in. I'm sure it will over the next few days. I'll be back on Tuesday with some form of show. And then we'll be doing a few season roundups as well to look forward to, which will be wonderful now that we've qualified for the Champions League and won a cup. I'll just say it again. Newcastle United have won a cup and qualified for the Champions League. Absolutely wonderful. It did happen, ladies and gents. It really, really did. Applauded to Eddie Howe and the players. Absolutely wonderful. Could give you a round of applause. Wouldn't sound too good on the podcast. Maybe I need a sound effect. But Eddie Howe, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And those players, enjoy your break if you get one. I know some are going away on international duty. But make the most of the summer and come back ready for a Champions League campaign, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the podcast. Make sure you click the link in the description box. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you to Crown Trade as well for sponsoring the show. Much appreciated. Thank you to you guys for following us throughout the entirety of the season. And oh my God, we could be back in Dortmund next year, or next season, next campaign. Exciting to think about, isn't it? But for now, enjoy your bank holiday. Do hit like, do hit subscribe, and I'll speak to you guys very soon.